Hello and welcome. I'm Amritanshu Rai and you're watching Law of the Land on Raj Sabha TV. Today we bring to you the Central Road Fund Amendment Bill 2017. To discuss the issue, I have with me Mr. Paritosh Tyagi, former chairman, Central Pollution Control Board, and Mr. Alok Ranjan, member Finance, Inland Waterways Authority of India. Now for the highlights. The Central Road Fund Amendment Bill seeks to provide 2.5% cess for development and maintenance of national waterways. After this is approved, over 2,000 crore rupees every year will be provided for development of inland waterways. Allahabad to Haldia on Ganga, Dhubri to Sadia on Brahmaputra among the 111 national waterways to get attention they will require. The Central Road Fund Amendment Bill seeks allocation of over rupees 2,000 crore from the Central Road Fund for developing inland waterways. The allocated funds will be used for all national waterways mentioned in the National Waterways Law.
National Waterways provides cost-effective, logistically efficient and environment-friendly mode of transport. Development of waterways as a supplementary mode would enable diversion of traffic from the over-congested roads and railways. The National Waterways Act 2016 lists 111 national waterways that can be used for navigation. This will facilitate better regulation and development of national waterways. However, infrastructure such as jetties, terminals, navigation channels for shipping and commercial navigation continues to be a challenge. Sustainable sources of funding is necessary to develop national waterways as budgetary support and funds from multilateral institutions are inadequate.
We have got a very big program, Sagarmala and all those that can define what work they want to do. The most important thing is dredging of all the rivers during the after rainy season or after channelization, And the other important thing is that their jetty, etc., they get shifted many times. So all these works, they require money. And if you have large number of, length is around 20,000 kilometers now. Presently, the waterway is, national waterway is around 20,000 kilometers. So for that you require a lot of money, and I think this will support it.
The Central Road Fund Amendment Bill 2017 seeks to provide 2.5% of the cess on high-speed diesel and petrol for the development and maintenance of national waterways. It amends the Central Road Fund Act 2000. The Act regulates the Central Road Fund (CRF) collected through the cess on high-speed diesel and petrol. This corpus is released to National Highways Authority of India (NHAI) and to the state, union territory governments for the development of national and state highways. The bill seeks to allocate a share of this amount towards the development of inland waterways. This will enable the government to provide funds for development of waterways.
It would help to fast track the waterway infrastructure work, and I think it is sensibly needed because waterways has been an ignored area. We haven't in the country really used waterways for transportation so far, and whatever has been done is very limited. So if we have to fast track it, we need to invest money, and this would help to provide a regular funding in this area.
According to the financial memorandum of the bill, the share allocated for waterways will amount to around rupees 2,000 crore every year. The fund collected under Central Road Fund (CRF) in 2016-17 was rupees 80,800 crore. In 2015-16 it was rupees 69,540 crore, and in 2014-15 it was rupees 25,122 crore.
Cargo transportation through water is likely to be a much cheaper and cleaner way of transportation, and is also expected to take away a part of the load from roadways and railways. Nishtha Malhotra with cameraman Raj Thakur for Rajya Sabha Television.
For the first 60 years after independence, the inland waterways sector received only 1,500 crore rupees in investment. The same amount was invested in the last 5 years. The inland waterways sector has been a story of neglect, but from here on, it's a new chapter. Sir, my point to you, Mr. Tyagi, is on the environmental side, we've allocated funds. This is going to have a long-term impact, impact over the long term. But the environmental aspect, do you see the inland waterways having the environmental impact assessment team in place to actually assess the impact on environment? And what all could that be?
Thank you for the question. The team should not be for assessment. The team should be a member of the planning of the project. That is my idea. Once the project has been planned, and then you say that it is assessed as unfavorable to environment, there is resistance in making changes to it. So the project should be planned accordingly. I personally feel that the various activities that will be involved there will determine how detrimental it can be to either environment or ecology or to the society living very near the river. At one time, the Honorable Minister had declared that he will have barrages constructed at 100 kilometers each in order to raise the water level in it so that boats could travel easily. Then naturally there was an uproar that the river will suffer a great deal because of that, and he has corrected his view very quickly and very rightly. Now, like that, I think the proposals are more important. In the present case, dredging is still a proposal. Now, dredging will increase turbidity. Turbidity will cause adverse effect on fisheries. Dredging, the dredged material has to be disposed of somewhere. That somewhere will become damaged. Moreover, there is a risk that if that somewhere is very near the river, then the material comes back to the river. So like that, dredging also involves noise. Dredging will drive away the aquatic life away from the site where it is dredged. So there are many other issues that come with that. And therefore, the effort should be to minimize the very need of dredging, if it cannot be totally eliminated. And I am happy to know, whatever I know, that the design of the barges, the design of the channel, etc., are being done with an idea to minimize dredging.
Would you like to join him on that issue? Because that's a very serious aspect of the entire, Mr. Ranjan, on the impact on the rivers. Because we've identified 111 of them, and now the money has been provided. Obviously, the work will start.
Yeah. First of all, I would fully appreciate the concerns raised by Mr. Paritosh. As you have already covered in your story, inland water transport is basically an environmental friendly mode of transport. And when we say that, we say this with a lot of sense of responsibility. The world over, international best practices are there, and a lot of research, number of studies have established that inland water transport is an environment friendly mode of transport. Having said that, it is our natural concern that while doing the minimum intervention in the river also, we should not lose sight of the environmental concerns. And I can assure you that whatever projects we are doing on the river, we make sure that First of all environmental clearances are taken, and then the studies like environmental impact assessment, social impact assessment, and environment management, EMP, management plan, are in place. So even before the start of any project, we have to ensure mandatorily that all these aspects have been taken care of.
It's
Secondly,
Mr. Ranjan, one aspect to get all the documentary evidence in place before proceeding for expenditure.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you being the implementation agency, and you'll be the ones who will be spending this money.
yeah.
So that makes you very, very important in the whole chain of activity. Do you see the environmental concerns already on board and a part of your system from scratch? Do you have that bandwidth?
Exactly, and that's what I was telling. Right now, we have one flagship program that we are having, Jalmarg Vikas project, which is a World Bank assisted project in River Ganga. And before we started any project at site, we made sure that all these studies that I mentioned were completed, all the environmental clearances were taken, and the wildlife also, like dolphin sanctuary, like turtle sanctuary, those also were covered with specific studies by experts. Coming to the other part that Mr. Paritosh covered, that is relating to the design of the vessels. Eventually, when the waterway will be ready, you will be plying the vessels. So we have engaged DST Germany, which is a leading global company in vessel design. And we have asked them to design vessels which are not only fuel efficient, but they are incorporating in their design such features that is ensuring that, like propeller guards, like engine mufflers, these actually reduce the sound of the vessel.
Right.
And they should also have a facility of switching over to battery operation mode wherever they are close to the sanctuary.
Correct.
So that the aquatic life is not disturbed at all.
So basically, you as the implementing agency have included
Yes.
almost all aspects that are relating to environment. Once the bill is enacted, identified national waterways such as those connecting Allahabad to Haldia on the Ganga, Dhubri to Sadia on the Brahmaputra, Kollam to Kottapuram on the West Coast Canal, Kakinada to Puducherry on Krishna Godavari, and Guanhali to Talechar on Brahmani Delta Canal are some of the waterways that will benefit.
The bill seeks to decrease the allocation of cess towards the development and maintenance of national highways from 41.5% to 39%. The remaining corpus will continue to be used for the development of national and state highways. The proposed allocation of funds is likely to accelerate the development of national waterways. The government also intends to offer incentives from private firms to invest in inland waterways transport. The current budgetary support and funds from multilateral institutions are inadequate.
Well, till the time I was in government, that is up to end of 2015, the waterways, Indian waterways was being funded entirely through the budget. And there are obvious constraints when you take a programming which is purely dependent on budgetary allocations. Through this enhanced availability from the cess, I am sure that a much bigger and a more dynamic program for the development of inland waterways and the infrastructure, the basic infrastructure required for that purpose would be available. And I'm sure that in the next 3-4 years, you will see rapid transformation in the inland waterways.
Of the 111 identified national waterways, Allahabad-Haldia stretch on the Ganga is expected to be over 1,600 kilometers long, serving Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand and West Bengal. Sadia to Dhubri stretch of Brahmaputra river will be about 900 kilometers long, serving Assam, West Bengal, Arunachal Pradesh and Meghalaya. The Kollam to Kottapuram stretch on West Bengal Canal will be over 200 km long and will serve Kerala. The Kakinada Puducherry on Krishna Godavari will be over 1000 km and will serve Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu and Puducherry. Goankhali to Talechar on Brahmani Delta Canal will be over 500 km long and will serve Odisha and West Bengal. The Lakhipur ferry ghat to Tukar Gram on the Barak River will be over 100 km long and will serve Assam, Mizoram, Manipur and Tripura.
Well, this is precisely is to create resources that could be used for promoting and creating national waterways. So, as I was saying, the cess, if it is through this mechanism, you would have regular resources available to channel into a creation of national waterways. So if you look at the kind of scope that we have, is that in 1985 it was only 5 waterways that they have, or 6 waterways that they have identified. But in 2006, I think they have kind of, it's an amendment act in which they have declared 111 national waterways.
Parliament had last year enacted National Waterways Act 2016 for developing and maintaining the existing 5 national waterways and 106 new national waterways across the country. The Inland Waterways Authority of India (IWAI) has estimated that approximately Rs 25,000 crore would be required for development of identified projects. The Central Road Fund Amendment Bill 2017 was introduced in the Lok Sabha on 24 July 2017 by the Minister of Road Transport and Highways, Mr. Nitin Gadkari.
Over 1 lakh persons are expected to be employed in the inland waterways transport sector in the coming 5 years. Operation and management sectors of fairway terminals trading will also see a surge in new employment. Nishtha Malhotra with cameraman Raj Thakur for Rajya Sabha Television.
Dredging for maintenance of depth, terminal making, barrage construction, fairways and bridges continue to be a big challenge for development of inland waterways. So, these are the challenges, and as you already have mentioned, Mr. Ranjan, that largely unfamiliar territory also remains a challenge, and also inviting private sector into this entire infrastructure creation for inland waterways is also one of the challenges you're facing. How do you plan to go about it, sir?
Yeah, a very good question, because at this juncture, while we are engaged fully with the construction of terminals, jetties, and we are into dredging and the other activities relating to fairway development like navigational aids, we are having this concerns also that once this infrastructure facility is created over a period of 4 years, 5 years, at the same time, the private sector should be ready enough to take a dip into this fairway developed with their barges ready, because in the Jalmarg Vikas project, as I mentioned, this is a flagship program that is already going on, and at the site constructions are going on the multimodal terminals in Sahibganj, Haldia and Varanasi. 2 intermodal terminals are coming up in Ghazipur and Kalughat, and one modern navigational lock is being created at Farakka. So with all these investments going into River Ganga, we would like to see barges coming into the waterway, and actually the cargo owners are enthusiastic enough to put their cargo in the inland waterway. And for that, we are now creating some kind of an awareness. We are holding stakeholders conference every 2 months. We are holding it on regional basis, going out of Delhi, organizing it in different centers on regional basis, involving the transporters, the cargo owners, the operators, the vessel manufacturers, so that they could come to know about the sector and they could get an assurance that yes, this is going to be a good business model for them. At the same time, we are also thinking of adopting some good international best practice, and that is a scheme called Marco Polo that was implemented by European Union. and that is basically to attract traffic from road to waterway, so that there is reduced emission. And the concern was basically environmental, because there was a study that established that €1 spent on water on this grant to shift the traffic from road to waterway gives you a social and environmental benefit worth €6. So if that could be thought about, and we can also think of giving some kind of a freight subsidy in the initial nascent stage of development of waterway, this will be having a huge impact.
Right, sir. Sir, my question to you, Mr. Tyagi, is there's been a traditional set of people who have been living on the banks of river. The Jalputra, we also know them by various other names. Sir, do you see an attempt by the government today to actually appreciate the bandwidth and experience of those people, even if they do not have the modern qualification, and to include them and make them a part of this entire inland waterways, because they are the best human resources that India has? Do you see that happening?
Absolutely right, and we will see whether it happens. Otherwise, the shippers will gain and the fishermen will lose.
Right.
But I want also to point out that there is a great need to have a river policy and a river act, which should regulate the river use just as we have regulations on land use. And otherwise what will happen is that during operation, spillage of oil and discharge of waste, they will be very difficult to be controlled under the existing laws. I have worked in the pollution control boards, both at the state and center, and I know their limitations.
Right.
So that needs immediate attention before the problems become as bad as we have on road, traffic jams and other things.
So have you actually factored this aspect? Because that's a very valid point.
Exactly.
And also the point on the Jalputra, sir.
Yeah, I'm really happy that this point has been raised, because in my mind I was thinking that we are perhaps going in the right direction, sitting with an expert from Pollution Control Board. When these concerns are there, I'm happy to say and share here that we are already aware of these challenges, and we have factored these things also into our plan. Like Mr. Paritosh mentioned about oil spillage. We have a policy on oil spill strategy contingency plan for Coast Guards. And we have put in place that also as far as JMVP is concerned, Jalmarg Vikas Project. We are having this concerns also factored into. The second point that you mentioned about the discharge from terminals going into the river. So we have adopted the Griha compliant thing, that is basically green terminal. It should be a green terminal. So we are making all our terminals that we are creating on Ganga, the multimodal terminals and intermodal terminals, Griha compliant. And this is basically a green rating. So it's a benchmark given, which will ensure that there will be zero discharge from the terminal to the water body.
So that has been factored in.
Yes.
So you also had, Mr. Tyagi, you pointed out that there was this major policy initiative that needs to be taken to cover the overall umbrella policy on environment. Do you see that happening? That's the point you were trying to make, that there is need for that now, because now India is moving on to more effective land use, more effective waterway use, more effective natural resource use. So what was the point you were trying to make?
Yeah, I was trying to say that at the moment we have no river policy and we have no river law. And therefore, all misuse of river, whether it is excessive abstraction of water, whether it is encroachment on its floodplains, whatever misuse is there, is in a way uncontrolled. So law is needed in order to ensure that not only river is properly and optimally used for the benefit of the society, but river itself should be allowed to live. I want to say this, that even the sea has some right on river, and the river has some right on its own water.
Correct.
But at the moment, we do not seem to be looking at it. We think that we have water rights and we have riparian rights.
Right. So quickly, sir, on the you have rights on the river, but on the banks, do you also have any rights as an implementing agency on the banks of the river and how that is going to be? Are you anywhere involved in that?
No. Actually, a river is a state subject, and we are only taking land for development of terminal. We also do some bank protection work, but as such, we are not having any rights on the land adjacent to the river.
So that's where I think he's right when he talks of an umbrella policy, because you've got one agency that is just implementing infrastructure on the river. Exactly. There's another agency which is implementing infrastructure on the land, and there is no hand-holding on that.
I fully endorse his views, because we are also coming into collusion sometimes with other agencies who are doing this work, and we are not having our mandate, which actually allows us to do that.
Moving on, my colleague Nishtha Malhotra spoke to Mr. Rajat Sachar, advisor, Ministry of Shipping, to get his point of view.
So, what is the impact that the 2.5% of cess is going to make to the infrastructure creation in waterways?
It's going to have a very, very major impact, because as of now, the waterway development is dependent on government funds only, and government funding is very limited. So this will provide an institutional mechanism for the development of waterways.
So, what is the existing system of providing funds for waterways?
At the moment, development of waterways is through the government budgetary sources. In addition, in the last 2 years, the government has provided raising of bonds by the Inland Waterways Authority of India. So these are the two main sources. In addition, we are now implementing the Jalmarg Vikas project, where 50% of the money is going to come from the World Bank in the form of a loan. So these are the three main sources, but the arrangement of having money coming from the Central Road Fund would be a major step for the development of national waterways.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Tyagi, Mr. Alok, Ranjan, for joining us on this discussion. It's time for us to end the show. You can email your suggestions and comments to law.rstv@gmail.com. You can also watch our shows on the RSTV page of YouTube. We'll be back with a new issue and a new episode. Keep watching Rajya Sabha TV.